Welcome to our webinar Wednesday, #Webinar Wednesday, a professional development web series for the college access and admissions community presented by collegegreenlight.com. And we are back again with our third installment of our COVID-19 and college admissions info sessions. Today's topic, COVID-19, cultivating relationships with admissions. And we are so grateful to have you all joining us, and we have our admissions friends at Pepperdine University today to provide insights on how access counselors and students can still cultivate meaningful relationships with colleges despite COVID-19 and all of those high school visits and college fair cancellations. I am your host, Brittany Cleveland, Senior Manager of Partner Engagement here at collegegreenlight.com, where we support the needs of over 15,000 registered college access counselors and 200 leading colleges, universities across the nation, providing free online college admissions and scholarship resources for first-generation and under-resourced college-bound students. Launched in 2012 by CapEx.com, our mission continues to close the information and opportunity gap across access counselors, students, and families across the country. And if you're new to College Greenlight, new to our community, well, hello there. We welcome you and your students to create a free account at collegegreenlight.com. And once completed, you'll gain access to our user-friendly online tools to help students find scholarships to pay for school, research diversity admissions programs, and explore virtual campus tours. And if you all need any help creating accounts, go ahead, type help in the chat box to your right or at the bottom of your screen, or contact our team at info@collegegreenlight.com to get started. All right, team. So to maximize today's webinar, we have some housekeeping tips and a special treat for you all. First, we want you to click the button below on your screen to download College Greenlight's COVID-19 Admissions Counselor Online Resource Hub. It includes links to new worksheets and resources, which includes CapEx, our parent company. They've just released a new student resource dashboard that includes virtual tours, updated decision deadline dates, and links to admissions, COVID policies, and changes. And saving the best for last is College Greenlight. We are hosting our second online college block party. This is a free 2-day online college knowledge conference for high school students from all grade levels, parents and counselors, tailored to our access community. Audience will gain advice from diversity admissions reps and talk with current college students from Colgate University, Smith College, University of California, Berkeley, Emory University, Washington University in St. Louis, and Tufts University. Topics include financial aid, COVID-19 and its impact on the fall college application, personal essay writing assistance, college 101 for Spanish-speaking families, and so much more. We will be live, y'all, on April 28th and April 29th. We want you to please share with your community. Last year, we had over 1,100 join us, and we want to make this even better because why not? You guys are at home. So join us virtually, and you can register at bit.ly/CBP Spring 2020. And my colleague Erica has included that link in the chat box. So if you guys go ahead and click on that to learn more and share with your students, we will be more than happy to do that. And counselors, if you need to batch register your students, we'll also provide that for you. Just email us at info@collegegreenlight.com for assistance. Or you can just click that button below to access the registration link. And Next, let's talk about housekeeping tips. Just to familiarize yourself with our webinar environment. Use the chat box to your right or bottom of the screen to add comments or ask questions. There is a Ask a Question feature at the bottom. Please feel free to insert any questions that you may have, and you can vote on the questions that are a priority. If you all do not get your questions answered during our Q&A session, that's okay. Continue to enter that, and we'll make sure that our Pepperdine team will follow up with you all to address those questions. And if you need to leave early, we will send the slides and recording for you to review within 24 hours. And again, please don't forget, sharing is caring. Forward to students and colleagues, and use this in your training as well. All right, team. Let's go on with the show. We will bring you, our guest Pepperdine admissions team, here. Bring them to the stage. All right. Give me 1 second so you guys can see their beautiful faces. And I'm going to bring Eddie to the stage here. All right, team. So they'll be joining our virtual stage all the way from their apartments in sunny California. They'll share counselor insights, tools, and resources to help students and counselors maximize face time with colleges and cultivate meaningful relationships with reps during these challenging times. Additionally, the team will also provide context and general best practices to help students develop meaningful relationships when our world normalizes in the fall, crossing our fingers. So counselors, we are thinking ahead and want you to feel free to repurpose this presentation when schools resume later in the year. All right, Katie, Alex, and Eddie, welcome to our stage.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eddie Mejia. I'm one of the admission counselors at Pepperdine University. Just want to be able to, say, we are greatly appreciative of this effort that we're all taking to serve students. I know for myself, my parents are immigrants. I'm a first-generation college student, so we want to thank you for this. Alex?
Yeah, and my name is Alex Moses. I am also an admission counselor at Pepperdine. Eddie and I together lead our office's diversity and access team. I grew up in a rural area that didn't have as many resources, and so I'm also really passionate about access. And so we're really glad to be presenting to all of you today. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. And my name is Katie White. I serve as an admission counselor at Pepperdine, and I'm a Pepperdine alum. I graduated just in 2019 with a bachelor's degree in psychology from Pepperdine. So I was very involved for my time as a student, grew a lot, and now I get to have the best job ever and get to work full time as an admission counselor at Pepperdine. Well, everyone, we know you all have a lot of things on your plate during this busy season with enrollment deadlines approaching and coronavirus implications. So thank you all so much for choosing to spend some time with us today and join us here. We really are thrilled to have you here, and we hope that you're staying safe and healthy during this time as well. But before we dive into our actual presentation, I wanted to give you all a brief overview of Pepperdine, really who we are, what makes us stand out, and how we review our applicants. So we were founded by George Pepperdine in 1937 in Los Angeles and moved to our Malibu campus in 1972. Our founder, George Pepperdine, was a lifelong member of the Churches of Christ, which is our religious affiliation. Although we're not governed or funded by the Churches of Christ, we are a distinctive Christian institution. And this plays out in several ways of student life on our campus. Additionally, we have a total of 8,000 Pepperdine students, including our 4 graduate schools, but just 3,400 undergraduate students. So this allows for a really tight-knit community with an average class size of just 19 students and a student-to-faculty ratio of 13:1. Academically, we offer 45 majors and 40 minors. Our top 5 by popularity are business administration, psychology, biology, sports medicine, and economics. And another distinguishing factor for our university is our study abroad programs. Our study abroad program has been consistently ranked in the top 5 in the nation for student participation. So 2 out of 3 Pepperdine students will study abroad, and we have 7 actual Pepperdine campuses around the world, and each program is taught by Pepperdine faculty in a Pepperdine-owned facility. But in terms of our admission process this year at Pepperdine, we received a total of 12,500 applications between early action and regular decision. At Pepperdine, we give a holistic review that is 70% academic and 30% non-academic. So we value students with stellar qualifications, including rigorous coursework, potential to engage in our unique undergraduate research and study abroad programs, outstanding leadership and community service, and a demonstrated commitment to faith. And this year, our mid 50% GPA for first year students was a 3.69 to a 3.97. Mid 50% SAT was a 1280 to 1440, and a 28 to 33 as a mid 50% on the ACT. So as you can see, we are an academically competitive university, and it's important for us to provide students with the best tools to be able to advocate for themselves in this application process. And we really believe the best way for students to begin this advocacy is by building relationships with admission representatives. So when we originally decided upon this topic back in February, our campus operations, along with most every other institution, were running as normal. But now in this current state that we're in, it's pretty ironic how much has changed when it comes to connecting with admission representatives. So today we want to provide you all with information that is relevant to connecting with admission representatives virtually, but also spend a significant portion of our presentation discussing our insights for students to cultivate these relationships normally. And we recognize that this landscape is fast changing, and so we hope to touch on ways to build these connections both in person and virtually. But really now more than ever, as admission counselors for Pepperdine, we truly understand the importance of what it looks like to build these meaningful relationships. Although Pepperdine, like many other universities, does not consider demonstrated interest as part of our decision process, we still believe that strong relationships with admission representatives allow our students to better advocate for themselves, get their questions answered, and also make their applications stand out. So this presentation is designed to leave you feeling equipped and inspired to provide your students with the best tips and tricks to cultivate meaningful relationships with admission representatives, so both in person and virtually. Our hope is that you leave feeling adequately prepared to teach your specifically first generation and low income students how to communicate with us most effectively. So we'll be talking for about 30 minutes and leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So let's get started.
Nice. So we've broken up our presentation into 3 main sections: sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. From our experience, sophomore year is typically when students begin to seriously consider colleges. For high school and CBO counselors, we understand that students often feel the pressure of reaching out to admission counselors early on. And although this can be helpful, most of the time students are unprepared to start cultivating meaningful relationships. So sometimes an unprepared initial reaction can leave a poor impression or not actually help the student get the right questions answered. So we believe the most effective communication comes from preparation. You should encourage your students to use sophomore year as a time of self-reflection. This is a great time to begin researching and creating lists of schools that match their interests. Students should be asking themselves, what am I looking for in a college? What would I be interested in studying? What size school is best for me? What is my ideal location? These don't have to be complex questions. These more surface level questions are a great place to start. Questions like these are all easily accessible on schools' websites, and there's no need to encourage a student to email an admission counselor asking, does your college offer a business major? Students who take time to research and explore these colleges during their sophomore year will be best set up to begin reaching out to schools their junior year. Building this strong foundation is crucial. And as a result of COVID-19, sophomores will not have the FaceTime opportunity to meet college admissions during college fairs. College admission representatives will be more consumed recruiting the upcoming cohort and wouldn't be able to answer sophomore questions. And so at this time, the best place to direct sophomores is to online tools. Online tools are more relevant than ever to help sophomores get their general questions answered and help them explore their college options. One website that they can begin to explore is collegegreenlight.com. Here, students can create an account, connect with college admission teams, and receive email updates on admission diversity programs. Another website you can direct students to is bettermakeroom.org. This website allows students to get motivated hearing from other first-gen students' journeys to college. Unfortunately, Summer programs have a high likelihood to be canceled during this season. So most summer programs start typically in June/July. Therefore, some colleges haven't officially made decisions to cancel, but colleges haven't officially made decisions to cancel. They are very relevant summer experience before junior year. And so make sure students follow up with the lead contact person to continue to express interest. Colleges will have set up virtual communications to keep candidates informed and updated throughout the process.
So now we'll transition to strongest practices for students to engage with admission offices beginning in junior year. The exploration and research stage can certainly continue after sophomore year, but junior year is now an excellent time to begin building that relationship with an admission counselor. One great way to begin this is by visiting college campuses. I'll be talking about some ways students can get the most out of a visit to campus before, during, and after. I'd first like to add, however, that with campuses closed due to COVID-19, colleges are relying more than ever on their virtual tours and other online outreach options. Students should find out if schools they're interested in will be hosting webinars, online application workshops, or virtual interviews. And students should make sure they're on a college's email list to stay informed. While many schools offer these virtual opportunities anyway, most have ramped up their virtual recruitment. For whenever students are able to step on campus, however, I'd give the following pieces of advice. Before stepping foot on campus, students should find out what kind of visit options are available at a school. Some schools may offer overnight visits or an opportunity to shadow a class or current student. All of these are great ways to get an in-depth look at a campus. These kinds of visits may be facilitated through the admission office or through different academic departments, so students should research how to attend each kind. In addition to just getting the feel for a campus, though, this visit is also a great opportunity to begin building that relationship with the admission office. One way to do this is to see if the college offers admission interviews and figure out the nature of the interviews offered. Are they evaluative interviews, which will become a part of the application, or are they informational interviews? Students should find out so they can be best prepared for either kind. Students should have some questions they know they'd like to ask on top of being prepared for some standard evaluative questions. Even if a school doesn't offer interviews, students should find out who their admission representative is, which can likely be found on the admission website or by calling the main office. Once students have researched what a visit can entail, they should compile the questions they'd like to ask. If able to interact with current students, they should think of questions about the student experience, and then think of questions about the application process they may want to ask specifically to an admission counselor. Keep in mind that whoever their admission representative is likely the one who will read their application, so students should make a strong first impression. Whether or not they're able to meet with their admission counselor, and they may not, as we do travel a lot and aren't always in the office, make sure students get our business card so they can follow up with questions and let us know they visited. After campus visits, their engagement doesn't have to be over. I'd encourage students to send a thank you letter, especially if they did a formal admission interview. Whether or not they were able to meet their counselor, sending them an email as well as staying in touch after the visit is a good practice. And later in the presentation, we'll discuss more specifically the do's and don'ts of communicating with admission counselors. Now, keep in mind, as admission counselors, we do understand that barriers exist in visiting college campuses, COVID-19 aside. Travel is expensive, and even for colleges nearby, families may not be able to take the time off to visit a campus. Fortunately, many colleges offer virtual alternatives. For example, at Pepperdine, we partner with the online platform UVisit, which provides a virtual tour of our campus and residence hall. Many other schools use this platform, among others, and if your students take a virtual tour, they should still let their admission counselor know and follow up with further questions. College Greenlight also has a virtual scavenger hunt worksheet that students can use to compare one college to the next. Sharing this with students is a great way to keep them engaged while navigating these virtual tours. And even if students can't come to campus or do visit campus and are unable to meet an admission counselor, again, that's okay, because we may come to you and your students. This is another reason to encourage students to get on the email lists of the colleges they're interested in. Yes, they will be bombarded with emails, but this will include important information about when a representative will be visiting their school or area.
Now, during junior year is where students will most likely begin to attend events such as college fairs, and it's a great opportunity to learn more information from schools across the country. So with that, we want to be able to mention some ways that students can best utilize their time before, during, and after attending college fairs. And the good thing is, whether the college fairs are in person or virtually, these practices are applicable to both situations. So before the fair, to begin, we want to be able to let students know that they should be able to find what schools will be in attendance and make a list of the ones that they're interested in and create columns for information and questions that are important. For example, are certain majors more competitive to gain admission than to others? Are there separate deadlines for admission and scholarship applications? Do you offer services to first-gen students? From here, students can have all the information in one place and then compare afterwards. Now, let's say your students are coming in with a completely blank slate, and that's perfectly fine too. This is a great opportunity to learn more about the schools and do their research. They can start off with simple steps to find schools to look into. Maybe start by finding 3 to 4 that are close to them for local options. Have them review another batch of schools that they are familiar with. Maybe they've seen them on TV playing sports or have known friends and classmates who have attended some of these universities. And finally, one last batch of schools that they've never heard of. From here, students should be using that column sheet that they created to go over details like what city and state is the school located? How big is it? Is this a test optional school? Does this school meet full need for students? They can also go on to the university YouTube and Instagram pages to grab some more info. Now, the day has come and students begin to see multiple schools, sometimes even hundreds show up to talk with prospective students. And it's a bit difficult task to try and visit every school in attendance. And so that's why it's important to be particular with which schools you talk with. So students should review their list and find the schools they selected beforehand and meet with the representatives. Thanks to their preparation, they should be ready with questions to go over. Students should take advantage of the fact that they have a real person to talk to. Ask questions of a personalized nature, like what's your favorite campus tradition? What in your opinion makes this school unique? This will help us as representatives remember students and our conversations. If students find themselves gaining interest in a particular school, remind them that they should provide their contact information so that they can be part of a mailing list. This is typically the primary way universities and colleges reach out to students about events, deadlines, and other information prospective students should know about. And finally, have them ask about their representative's business card/email with the intention of reaching out should more good questions come up in the future. Have them continue this process with other schools that they speak with during the fair. And finally, when the fair is over, have students go over all the information gathered and reevaluate the schools that they were visiting. Were there certain schools that stood out compared to others? Is there a school that a student is highly considering that they want to apply to? They should find the business card of the representative they spoke with and send an email. Have them establish that relationship with the admission representative so that they are familiar throughout the application process. For high school visits, it's a similar process as college fairs, but there's some extra little things that you can keep in mind moving forward. And just as college students have to be aware of their college schedules, your students should be up to date with the information that the college counseling office or your office puts out if a college representative comes to visit. Now, I assume that we all prefer to be aware of meetings or events prior to them occurring. So that goes the same with teachers. So it's important for students to approach their teachers and notify them that a representative from a school that they are strongly considering is coming. It most likely will be a lot easier to be granted permission rather than making a last-minute announcement the day of the visit. The earlier teachers are made aware of these sessions, the better the chances to be allowed to be dismissed from class and attend these informational sessions during school. There have been multiple times I've communicated with students prior to arrival on their campus, and they're excited to learn about Pepperdine, but then day of, they don't show up because their teacher wasn't able to excuse them. Communication is helpful for everyone involved in this process. When students are at the session with the representative, once again, they should have questions prepared as much as possible. Have them ask about upcoming events, tips when applying in the future, or any other questions that may come up throughout the presentation. And once again, have students reach out afterwards, cementing that connection and demonstrated interest. Counselors, you can do your part to prepare for before an admission representative comes to your high school for a visit. You know your students best, so letting an admission representative know what will be meaningful for your specific students will allow us to do our job easier. You might consider emailing the admission representative beforehand to let them know that how many students are planning to attend the visit, talk about the characteristic of your student body, and think about other ways to prepare them. CBOs and college access programs, you also have the advantage to invite us representatives to meet students during or after after school or weekend programming. Don't be afraid to guide us on how to be supportive. Due to after hours, we'll tend to have a little bit more flexibility with time. See how you can transform a traditional info session into a college admissions workshop. And as best practice, send a quick email to the rep in advance on the types of conversations, diversity talking points, financial aid questions, or workshops ideas that colleges presented in past you'd like for them to share with the students. Creating a template email/PDF will be useful handout to share and to streamline your communication efforts.
So I want to spend some time specifically addressing how students can best ask about diversity on the campuses they're visiting or are interested in. It's certainly something that's on the minds of many students of color, especially if they're considering predominantly white institutions, but I also know that asking can feel uncomfortable. My biggest piece of advice for students asking about diversity on campuses is to be specific. Asking a vague question like, "Can you tell me about diversity?" may result in an equally vague answer, and students may walk away without helpful information. I encourage them to ask directly what they'd like to know. If they want to know the race and ethnicity statistics of the student body, they should feel empowered to ask that, and an admission counselor should know this information. If students want to know about specific organizations or resources for particular groups, ask that as well. Good questions could include, does your school have any programs or support specifically for first-gen students, undocumented students, students of color? What cultural affinity groups are there and what events do they put on? Asking these kinds of more specific questions should yield more meaningful answers and conversation. One of my favorite students I met at a college fair asked me many questions about the experience of Black students at Pepperdine. I was able to have an honest conversation about our Black student body and include information about our Black Student Association and our two historically Black Greek organizations. It was also a chance for me to plug a special program that our Black Student Association offers for prospective students, a shadow program that allows them a more in-depth experience by shadowing a BSA member for a day with classes, a meal in the cafeteria, and potentially a BSA meeting or event. And this brings me to my next point, which is that I'd also encourage students to ask about any potential fly-in or summer program opportunities. Many schools offer fly-in programs for targeted groups of students to come visit campus for free. And so these are great questions to ask admission counselors, whether that's over email or in person at a college fair. If there's a school across the country a student is interested in, this can be a great chance for them to visit campus and leave a strong impression on the admission office. Counselors, you can use College Greenlight's fly-in list resource for reference linked in the slide. And most fly-in programs for prospective students that are held in the fall have not been canceled. And students are still encouraged to apply as early as May. Some colleges may offer programs intended for local students as well. For example, at Pepperdine, we have an overnight summer program for local first-generation students called Pepperdine Summer Preview. I love when students in the local area ask me if we have any programs like this during a college fair, so I can drum up excitement for this visit option.
Now, we also think it's important to take some time to provide counselors with some best practices for your students to cultivate relationships with admission representatives virtually. Obviously, COVID-19 will have a significant impact on juniors' application process due to campus being closed to visitors. And we're aware that this increases the anxiety juniors are feeling about connecting with admission representatives. So let's talk about some ways to combat these fears and continue to cultivate meaningful relationships. It's also important for both students and counselors, CBO counselors, to acknowledge that this is new for all of us. And so as an admission team, we are continuing to learn, pivot, and adapt when it comes to all platforms of virtual connection. But the number one piece of advice to share with your students, especially to your juniors, is to reach out to admission representatives during this time. Every university is adopting new ways to connect with students, so encourage them to email admission counselors of schools they're interested in to find out what each specific school is offering. On this slide, you can also see several upcoming College Greenlight programs that are being offered virtually, and we'll share another slide that shows some other virtual resources for you all as well. But the reality is that the nature of virtual events is also fast changing. And at Pepperdine, we are continuing to think of new elements to offer our prospective junior students. And we are currently offering Zoom phone appointments, virtual campus tours, and virtual application workshops. In the coming weeks, we're looking to create even additional virtual webinars and information sessions to serve these specific students as well. But finally, we want you to encourage your students to also follow social media accounts of schools they're interested in. And we know at Pepperdine, we are continuously posting links to webinars, meetings with admission representatives, and virtual campus tours to our Instagram page. And we would love love for you to share with students that social media is a really great way to keep students up to date during this time for universities as well. But counselors, let's also take some time to talk about how you specifically can support your students through this transition of virtual connection. It's important to be aware of what opportunities are out there so that your students feel supported. And as counselors, you have the ability to provide students with the knowledge of what's available to them. I would encourage you all to reach out to schools and reach out with admission representatives so that you also have the best information to relay to your students. For example, most schools have application workshops continuing virtually, live, or pre-recorded. Most schools also offer virtual campus visits, so you could do your part by compiling a list of virtual resources like these to share with your junior students. Another option is to participate or host an online college fair. This definitely requires some time and support, but colleges are eager to have these platforms to continue to serve students. And finally, counselors, you can take advantage of some additional online resources through College Greenlight's CAPEX. They released a COVID-19 student dashboard that has compiled a list of college decision deadline updates and virtual tours. So that can really be a great resource for you. But additionally, with spring recruitment travel shut down due to COVID-19, College Greenlight is supporting virtual meetings between counselors and colleges. And if you're interested in having College Greenlight promote virtual visit opportunities with your organization, they have 200 plus college partners. So definitely fill out this form on the slide and provide appropriate contact information for them. But as counselors, we want you to use this time to sharpen your relationships with admission representatives so that you can best serve your students. And then we'd also love to continue to discuss this fast-changing virtual opportunities for students in the question and answer portion afterwards, so we can continue this conversation. But hopefully throughout junior year, doing this kind of research and building these relationships leaves students feeling confident in their ability to begin applying to colleges their senior year. So now we're going to pivot to talking about senior year, and we'll go over some keys to being successful as a student as they are finally beginning those applications.
Now, as senior year rolls around the corner, we want to highlight some of the do's and don'ts that your rising senior should keep in mind. So first one is do proofread emails. As students begin to reach out to admission representatives, make sure students are always reviewing what they write before pressing send. Encourage them to download Grammarly. It's free and it's useful to ensure that there are no misspellings. And language should always be professional and not too relaxed or immature. Which brings me to my next point. Don't treat these emails as a group text with friends. The individuals that read those emails are most likely the same ones who review their applications. It does not paint a positive picture if you don't take the time to do the simple things. Students should, for example, always say thank you at the end of the emails, and courteous and professional interactions are important to cultivate meaningful relationships when reaching out to admission at offices. For example, just about 2 weeks ago, I had a student spell out thanks THX, and also had another student use winky faces. It's awkward, so make sure students read their email a second time to ensure it's the right move as they press send.
Students should check their application status, and most schools will offer students an online portal to see if we've received all of their required application materials. Instead of reaching out to their admission counselor asking if we've received their application, students should keep an eye on their email and portal to remain informed. Don't reach out without doing your research. This is part of making sure that these interactions are meaningful. If there's something students have a question about or something on the portal doesn't seem right, of course they should reach out, but should make sure they've done their own research first. Oftentimes, they'll be able to find these answers on their own.
And the next don't is to not ask obvious questions. Like we said before, there is no need for a student to email an admission counselor asking, where is your school located? What is your mascot? Do you have a theater major? And although these are good questions to learn about a school, they're all questions that students can find on a website. So do ask prepared and thoughtful questions. Admission representatives want to help make students' college decisions easier, and we understand that getting students' questions answered can be very helpful in the application and decision-making process. However, we encourage students to ask questions that are thoughtful and prepared. Preparing your questions includes doing your research beforehand. So as a counselor, you can be a resource for students by preparing a list of good questions for students to use in their emails, phone calls, and face-to-face interactions. This can include questions like, what sets your university apart from others? Will the professors engage with me both in and outside the classroom as my teachers, advocates, and mentors? I see that your school has a business major. How does this major prepare students for jobs after graduation? How will this university help me grow spiritually? How would you describe your campus community? These types of questions allow students to gain information that's not obvious on a website. And additionally, thoughtful questions can show an admission representatives that students have done their part by researching a school and portray a level of professionalism that is often impressive.
So once it's spring and schools are sending out decisions, please ensure your students that admission counselors are still their resource after decisions have been released. We'll go over the different kinds of decisions and how it is best to interact with counselors once they've heard the news. So first, there's the denies. We know that rejection is upsetting, but as you're all aware, it's a part of the process and part of learning and growing. I would strongly advise students to not reach out to schools they were denied from, either to ask why or to petition to change the decision. These decisions are almost always final, and these kinds of conversations aren't generally productive. Once a student has heard back from all their schools, I'd encourage them just to focus on the schools they got into and celebrate their accomplishments rather than dwelling on the denies. Next, there's the waitlist. This can often be a confusing decision, but I would reiterate to your students that a waitlist decision is still something to be proud of. This means the school thinks this student is admissible and is absolutely qualified to be there, but especially at selective schools, we have to make really challenging decisions between admit and waitlist, and it's often simply about how much room there is. If a student is waitlisted at a school they're interested in, make sure they accept their spot on the waitlist. I'd also encourage waitlisted students who are interested in attending to reach out to their admission counselor, indicating their continued interest. This is extremely helpful as we're considering who to let off the waitlist to know who remains interested. Let's say a student is happy with where they're accepted and have multiple great options. If a student is not interested in remaining on a waitlist and are more excited about other schools they have gotten into, I'd encourage them to withdraw their application and give up their waitlist spot. Of course, students should only do this if they're certain about where they've gotten in and are 100% no longer interested. For us, knowing that a student isn't interested is also helpful in narrowing down our waitlist to those who are. Waitlist action can be very unpredictable and vary year to year on so many factors. Some years we may exhaust the whole waitlist, and some years we may not let anyone off. In a year like this year, many schools are anticipating going to their waitlist more than they historically do, so it can never hurt to remain on a waitlist somewhere a student is interested. That being said, students should never rely on a waitlist and should certainly commit to somewhere they have been accepted to, as we can never guarantee if we will move on a waitlist.
And finally, the most anticipated admission decision is congratulations, you have been admitted. Students may feel that their work is done at this point, but now they are decision makers, and admission representatives still want to be a resource for students in the decision-making process. They hold the knowledge on most aspects of the university, or they can direct students to the person who does. And we want students to not shy away from continuing the conversation with us once they are admitted. Getting questions answered is a crucial component of making the most informed, confident college decision, and admission counselors are students' resource for this. College Greenlight has also created a handout called Questions All Admitted First Generation. Students should ask admission representatives to help make college decisions. And this can be a great resource for students to find appropriate questions. So definitely check this out. The link's on the slide. But we recognize that continuing to be a resource for admitted students looks slightly different due to COVID-19. But admission representatives really are still here to hold phone appointments, Zoom appointments, and webinars. At Pepperdine, we recently hosted a virtual admitted students Day webinar where we shared with admitted students fun facts about this year's admitted class, next steps, and held a question and answer session with admission representatives from different departments and also current students. And this week we have been hosting virtual student life fair where admitted students can hear from specific campus departments such as campus life, spiritual life, student resources, academic and career programs, and first year opportunities for students. And so we really encourage students to utilize these resources that colleges are preparing for them to help make the most informed college decision despite the circumstances that we're in.
So to conclude, we also want to visit all of you. And as admission counselors who travel all over the country, we'd love the opportunity to visit with your organization. Just like your students can, please feel free to reach out to admission reps to find out when we'll be in your area and if we can schedule a visit. We can then tailor our visit to the specific needs of your students and organization, whether that's a presentation specifically for low-income or first-gen students and what's available on our campuses for them. If you'd like us to do a virtual visit as well, let us know. We want to be flexible in this uncertain moment.
Your students will have multiple opportunities to be advocates for themselves, but they can also be advocates for the CBOs that they are part of as well. If students know beforehand that they will be attending a campus visit or college fair, have them bring business cards from their respective organizations that they attend. I know this is how I've been introduced to new CBOs that weren't on my radar, and led to great visits and partnerships. So especially during this time, we're more than happy to reach out and find ways that we can be a resource for your students and yourselves.
So that concludes our presentation today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now we're going to transition to a time of Q&A to get your questions answered. We're going to have Brittany pop back on the screen.
I can start answering one of these questions, though. I do see a question about when students take a virtual tour, will colleges receive the students' information such as name, email, etc.? And would this be considered demonstrated interest if applicable? And that's a great question. And I know with hold on, I'll put my video on, you can see me. I know with UVisit, which is the platform that we use at Pepperdine, yes, we can capture their information if they take that virtual tour. And they'll be prompted to give their information when they go to the UVisit website. I know it can be tempting to maybe want to click away and not give their information and get to the tour quicker. And that is an option, so they don't have to do it. But I would definitely encourage them to do so that we know that they attended that virtual tour. And I mean, at Pepperdine, where we don't track demonstrated interest, that's not something that's factored into admission decisions. But I'd imagine that at other schools where it is something they track, that's absolutely a way that they one of the ways that they could do that. So great question.
All right, team. Can everyone hear me? Okay,
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a question from Colleen. When students take a virtual tour, will colleges receive the students' information, email, name, etc.? And will this be considered demonstrated interest if applicable?
Yeah, and so like I was mentioning, no, it's okay. We partner with UVisit. I'm not sure what other kind of online visit or tour platforms there are, but I do know at least with UVisit there is that capability.
Okay, so sorry.
No worries.
Our next question is, have there been conversations on COVID-19 and its impact on fly-in opportunities for rising seniors? And if you all are having any conversations about your fly-in programs, can you give a little bit context of some of the concerns and some of the practices that you are putting in place to make sure that student safety are being acknowledged?
Let's see, if you want, I can answer that one. So in term for kind of some of the let me minimize this on my screen. In term for some of the conversations that we've been having when it comes to programs where rising seniors can visit our campus, Pepperdine has always been a university to make sure that we're following the guidelines of LA County and other health departments to make sure that we're ensuring a safe environment for all of our students. So that's typically what we usually follow in terms for kind of best practices when it comes to them visiting our campus. And then for us in our part within the admission office, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we are checking to see, what is a right time and good practice for these students to come onto our campus, especially right now. We are constantly having these conversations. We do have committees that meet on a daily basis to ensure that the university, its students, its visitors are kind of in its best interest to make sure that they are safe and healthy. So that's at least what we've been kind of doing right now to kind of see, our potential events that we will be having, during summer months, if we should be canceling them, are we able to maintain them, things like that. But anyone else on the team want to kind of add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, and something a decision that our office recently made was to unfortunately cancel our the summer program that I mentioned we offer for local first generation students, Pepperdine Summer Preview. So it was scheduled for July, and with so much uncertainty, we did decide to cancel that event. Unfortunately, we're all bummed because it is a really fun program for our office and a great way to engage with our local first gen students. So we are in the process of discussing sort of virtual alternatives. And so we'll certainly plan on communicating to our local counselors and students what we end up deciding on, but we certainly still want to make sure we're reaching them how we can at this time.
We have a question from Roxana. I understand the do's and don'ts, but can you describe a little bit more how we can support students who may struggle with a language barrier or unfamiliar with where to begin looking for the information?
Eddie, you want to take this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think right now, universities are starting to recognize this. And so, for example, even within our university, we've been starting to kind of push towards finding resources for second language. I know recently for myself, I took part in the video that was filmed in Spanish, basically giving tips for students to keep in mind when it comes to starting the application process. And this is something that has only started within the last few months. And so this is something that I feel that we'll probably continue moving forward with, especially right now, if students aren't able to visit campuses, we want to make sure that they have those resources available online for them to look into. And I know for myself, I've been able to reach out to other colleagues from different universities where they're starting to translate some of their pages online into Spanish, for example. And I know for us, another resource that we've been doing that Alex mentioned earlier in the presentation, our platform for UVisit, where that's a virtual tour, we have that in Spanish as well as in Mandarin. So that's something that's, students can be able to kind of start seeing as the process goes on for universities to recognize ways that they can be able to get rid of those barriers in terms for access and finding more information about colleges.
We have a question from Lilia, and this is a really good question. How can we best guide our seniors that are reconsidering going to a four-year college? Many of our low-income students feel safer to stay at the junior college due to COVID. Any thoughts, ideas that you guys have to offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know that that's something a lot of students are definitely considering. And that's tough. Obviously we're in the position, we work for a four-year institution and we see the value in a four-year liberal arts education. And of course we are so for that. And we also want students though to make decisions that are financially sound and, make sense for their family, and know that two-year options can be great as well. So that's hard to say, but I think, having really just thorough conversations with your students about kind of the pros and cons of either decision, right? And making sure they're really understanding, right, what they can get at a two-year, what they can get at a four-year, and just what either route would look like. Because I think going to a two-year is a great option and really affordable, and you can stay close to your family and community. But also I know that, a four-year education, what we all advocate for in our jobs daily, is also such a valuable experience, especially for first-gen students. So I think just taking the role of educator, of course, as we all always do, and making sure that just they have a real understanding of either option. Yeah. But I think that also ties in, though, to, I think, a reason we want to make sure that we're really recruiting and reaching students in our own backyard in LA, and understanding, hey, you can still be close to your community. You can still be in this area that you're comfortable in and close to home and still go to a four-year option. So I think always, looking at four-year options that are within a close distance is also a great path.
We have a question from Michelle. When you reference engaging in social media, i.e. Instagram, Facebook, are those accounts interactive with admissions, or are they run by a social media manager? In other words, could a student ask a question and get a response from admissions? And I'd like to also add, a couple of our counselors did mention that they had students reached out to admissions officers but did not receive a response. Can you guys provide a little bit more clarity, best practices on how students should move forward with that?
Yeah, so in terms of our social media accounts, we do have a social media manager that works in our admission offices that does run our Instagram and social media accounts. So she's really a great contact for students who would reach out via social media. But when we are talking about our social media accounts, a lot of what we're posting is links and deadlines and kind of updates when it comes to our admission process and great resources for students there. So I would still recommend a student to reach out to, if they want to reach out to our Instagram account and that's run by our admission social media advisor, they will most likely direct them to us as admission representatives, as the main ones who can continue to be that resource and answer those questions.
And I'd also add, I think it can be a little confusing when you're like looking for colleges' social media accounts, because the admission office social media account might be different than like the main university social media account, right? So we have, our office's undergrad office social media account, but then there's also the Pepperdine main Instagram account, and that one is not run by our office. We have nothing to do with that one really. So if a student were to reach out to that one, they wouldn't likely, reach one of us directly. So I just say, make sure that you're reaching out to an admission office's social media as opposed to the general university.
And wanted to get your thoughts on how students who defer for a semester have a gap year due to the pandemic uncertainty. Have you all been receiving feedback from students at your team or from your colleagues across colleges across the board?
Yeah, I know I've received some inquiries about that, and I know it's something students are certainly considering doing. At least in our office, we haven't really made any formal policy changes or anything related to that. We don't generally, as a policy, we don't defer admission for admitted students, and that's always been our policy. But I know some students are also, considering taking a semester off after graduating. And so, yeah, unsure. Again, good reason to stay on top of different colleges' policies and what changes they're making. We have not made any change related to that at this point.
Okay. And we have a couple of questions in terms of financial aid and how that would be communicated with students moving forward, especially seeing as though students will not have that face-to-face time with admissions representatives. So could you all provide a little bit more insights on the conversations that you all are having as a team or just colleagues regarding the state of, the economy and how you all would be communicating that between students and counselors in the months to follow?
Yeah, definitely. Something that our university has been taking part in, for not only just based on the current situation that we have right now with COVID-19, but even in the past has been, for example, that we have with our Office of Financial Assistance, a special circumstances appeal form. So this is where students and families are able to elaborate and give more information based on changing situations that a family might experience. So, for example, right now, our Office of Financial Assistance are fielding requests and appeals from families that might have been dealing with unemployment or that might have been dealing with situations that deal with having to pay for medical bills. And so we usually what was that again?
I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking a question. But yeah, essentially this allows for families and students to be able to provide documentation just for us to be able to view it, and then our financial aid advisors are able to look over it and give as much feedback and then as well as much assistance, especially during this time. So that's at least what we've been doing at Pepperdine to kind of help with students and families dealing with everything going on right now.
And something else we did, we always have a special circumstances appeal process in place, but we did extend the deadline that students can apply for the appeals program, understanding that many people came into special circumstances they weren't expecting, that aren't reflected on their FAFSA. And so we extended our enrollment deadline to June 1st, as many other schools have. We also extended that financial aid appeals deadline to help students, get a better financial picture of what Pepperdine's going to be able to offer them.
Yeah, this is really great. I'm going to pause, and I think the really thoughtful Pepperdine team for providing us with such a great presentation. Again, you all are in the midst of uncertainty as well. And I think it's really important that we at least are creating these opportunities where our counselors and students are able to talk with the admissions world and kind of know where your head is at as well. I wanted to just let you all know, if we did not get to your question, we'll definitely follow up with your questions and provide an answer via email. Now, just in case we did not get to your question, we probably answered the question, and would just encourage you all to review the recording. We will be sending the recording and the additional materials in the next 24 hours. I want to also acknowledge that today's presentation is one of 3 COVID-19 related webinars that we've hosted within the past month. And so if we did not get a chance to answer your questions today, there are additional recordings and videos that you all can reference, especially when it comes to testing. I know we had a couple of questions regarding ACT and SAT cancellation. We had a couple of questions around test optional and how that will impact students moving forward, as well as additional questions regarding financial resources to help our students. We here at College Greenlight, we are here to help support you all, and we definitely welcome feedback. So please and contact us at info@collegegreenlight.com for more topics that you would like us to cover and how we can best support you and your team as well as your students. My team, Pepperdine, do you all have any parting words to share with our counselors, or warm and fuzzies?
No, thank you all for all that you do for your students, and just know that we appreciate that work. We know how hard you work on the other end too. So thanks for tuning in and for all that you do.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We really appreciate you, and we couldn't do all this without you and go through the season without you all. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think all of us are right now heading into uncharted waters, but I think for us, it's exciting to see that all of us are being supportive to one another, to make sure that we best serve our students. So thank you for everything that y'all do.